Hi, I'm here to talk to you today about World War I, or more specifically an event that happened in World War I. My X factor is the conscription crisis. This is something that really affected Canada at the time and continues to affect Canada today. What I'm going to try and do is break it down quite simply into the perms, and I'm going to try to do this in under 3 to 4 minutes. So bear with me. I'll leave it up to you. If you want to do more research on this stuff, fantastic. If you don't, that's okay too. If I look off to the side, I'm referring my notes. Okay? So here we go. The conscription crisis in 1917. Well, at this point in the war, right after the Battle of the Somme, Canada's in dire need to replenish its soldiers. Okay, and recruitment campaigns are not really working. Okay, the word is out. If you go to war, you can really get hurt. So they're not working. So Prime Minister Borden issues this conscription. Okay, this is a big event. There's riots about this. People in Quebec are not happy about this, and lots of people in the Western provinces and Ontario as well are not happy about this either. But in Quebec, in particular, they've made themselves very clear from the start. Okay, they're against this war. All right, this seems like something that really has no impact on Canada. Why are we in this? Why do we have to go to war and risk our lives? Okay, there's riots. There's confrontation with military in Quebec City. Some people get killed in Quebec. It's a huge outrage. Okay, so what does this do? What does this do to Canada as a whole? Well, it polarizes us by our language and indirectly religion, right? Anglophone, Protestant, Francophone, Catholic. Okay, polarizes our nation at a time when we really should be coming together. Okay, this is a time when countries are collapsing, empires are falling. Canada needs to stick together. Conscription doesn't do that for us. Okay, politically, to the Quebecois, this is an injustice. Absolutely an injustice. Why are we even in this war? Remember, seemingly, this has absolutely no impact on Canada directly. The people in Quebec begin to severely distrust the Anglophone government leaders. Okay? And this is something that you can see today still, and I'll refer to that a little bit later on. A little bit. Because of this conscription, at the time, the Conservative government loses a lot of its influence in Quebec. Okay? Again, distrust, right? It never really gains it back. Okay? To me, though, the biggest thing that conscription does is the last straw in a long list of perceived injustices that has happened to the Quebecois people over a long period of time. Okay? Starting back from the 7 Years' War. I can list them all, but I'll leave it up to you to look up. So what it does is mobilizes them through this distrust to become a very potent political force in Canada. And as I said, still relevant today. Economically, what does this do? Well, immediately what it does is first and foremost, it takes some begrudging workers away from the workplace and puts them in the military. Okay? But that's that's direct, but it's not huge, I don't think. The mobilization of political thinkers is more important on this sense, because what it actually does is it makes people start to think differently. Okay, up to this point in Quebec, there was kind of low wages, poor working conditions. It made people start to think and start to critically analyze what's been going on in their lives. So economically, those things start to change in the coming decades. I think we can make change. Let's do it. All right. Religiously, what this does, conscription, it highlights and points directly to the differences that separated Lower and Upper Canada, Canada East, Canada West, 50 years earlier. The two distinctly different languages, different religions, and different cultures that existed in Canada before we became a country. People had been using these points as excuses for coming together for years, and now it had been brought back into the limelight with long-lasting effects. Okay? In Canada, an example of this can be seen as late as 1995, when Quebec's separation from Canada was only narrowly avoided with a province-wide vote, resulting in a 50.5 to 49.5% decision to remain part of Canada. That's tight. That's real tight. Okay? Militarily, what does this do? What does conscription do? Well, it provides many needed troops to continue the campaign overseas, and it actually lets our politicians feel like they've been accountable to some sort of imperial expectation. to Britain, right? It also immediately strengthens the Allied and Canada's military, but at what cost? Finally, socially, okay, this creates upheaval, creates unrest, unhappy, critical people in Quebec, critical of the government, okay, creates a generation of people who are impacted by this, right? An event which many in Quebec would call a betrayal of their wants, their needs, and their desires. It led ultimately to a generation of people who wanted change in Canada's political system, one that would recognize the wants and desires of the Québécois. They noticed things like there were very few French MPs, no French schools anywhere in Canada except for Quebec. I thought we were founded on equal principles here. English signs and language barriers in the rest of Canada as opposed to Quebec. And they also pointed out little things like our Canadian flag was a little bit too British and didn't really represent the French desires and the French sort of culture. Okay? All of which began to change due to conscription. My ex. I leave the rest to you. Thank you very much.